Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Unleash Your Voice. I am your host, Priya Sam, and today I am so excited to have Hailey Dawood as my guest. Hailey is an entrepreneur, a content creator, an award-winning event professional, and she is the owner of The Idea Hunter, one of Canada's top corporate event and entertainment agencies. She has more than a decade of experience in marketing and events, and Hailey has produced events for brands like the Toronto Blue Jays, Hudson's Bay, MAC Cosmetics, and so many more. And her visionary leadership earned her the title of Event Professional of the Year in 2023. Her biggest turning point happened when she made a really bold decision. She left her corporate job to work for her mom's business. It changed the course of her life, and we're going to hear more about that today. Welcome to Unleash Your Voice, Hailey.
Hi, Priya. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm so excited to hear your story, and for everyone who's listening to hear your story too. Before we get into that turning point, I would love to go back to before you started working in events, because you had a whole life in the corporate world. So what did you do there?
I started in accounting, actually. I was raised by entrepreneurs, and there's two types of entrepreneurial parents, the ones that will encourage you to be an entrepreneur and the ones that will steer you so far away from it. And my parents were the ones that were like, get a stable job, be an accountant. That's a great job. You'll make lots of money. It'll be very secure. So I grew up thinking I was going to be an accountant. So I actually started a lot of my initial internships at accounting firms. The reason why I wanted to highlight that is because the big turning point for me in those jobs was realizing like you can never make money in something you're not passionate about, no matter how much of a height of salary it can have. I knew if I didn't love it, I would never make it to the top of that ladder. So I left that, switched over to marketing, went to work at Pepsi when I graduated in marketing right on the Pepsi brand, which was very cool and very exciting coming out of university. And then I ended up getting an opportunity over at General Mills to work on another CPG product in the marketing arena. So that's actually where I started my career. Most of it was in the CPG world.
Wow. And so when you think about like that choice to pursue accounting, was it mostly like for that stability that you mentioned, or like were you a numbers person? Was there anything else that contributed to that?
Yeah, I would say two things. Definitely stability and wanting something that was going to be something that I felt like I could really rely on financially. I was always driven by money in a very healthy way, but I wanted to make a lot of money. I wanted to support myself. And I felt like, okay, that makes sense. Let me go through accounting. The other thing that led me to accounting was I taught accounting in high school and university. For some reason, I understood accounting, the why behind accounting. So I was able to teach other people so that they could better understand why they were doing what they were doing. And it just clicked, but turns out it was not a great career, but I could have made a great accounting professor.
I love that. Like, it's so interesting too. I mean, sometimes I still think it's just wild that we make these decisions about our future when we're like 17 or 18, because like
Yes.
at that time, you just, first of all, you're so young, but also you just don't even know necessarily the possibilities. Like, your parents' jobs, maybe their friends' jobs, maybe like your aunt and uncles and like some family members' jobs. But like, I think about some of the jobs that I've had, I didn't even know they existed at that time. So you do kind of like what you're saying about you just sort of follow what you're good at, right? And it makes sense.
Yeah. And what your parents drive you towards, what you see
Yeah.
around you, what feels kind of like, okay, this makes sense. Let me just try and do that. I'm glad that they pushed me towards like a stable career though, because I still lean on that foundation, that business degree, the accounting knowledge, all of that. So I'm really happy I started there because I'm like, everybody essentially needs to know this anyways to some degree. So I'm glad it was useful. It just was not where I was going to stay for the rest of my life.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. So you mentioned both your parents were entrepreneurs. So what was your perception of entrepreneurship when you were growing up?
Yeah, I actually grew up around a lot of entrepreneurs. So
Mm.
entrepreneurship was very normal to me. And I would say that they worked a lot, especially my mom. Like my mom worked a lot. She would come home really late. She traveled a ton. But That was about it. I didn't really have any, it was really normal. Like both my parents did it. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. My aunt was an entrepreneur. So it was just pretty normal to be around. And it was more around the fact that in our household, it was all about how can you make money. And that was like that was something ingrained in me pretty young that if you want something, you can figure it out. If you want to start a business, like I had my first business card at 12 years old because my twin sister and I started a company called the Twin Sitters. And my dad made us these business cards because he was in marketing. So we were just always working. Like we loved making money. We loved the fact that we could like go out, put our effort in, and that would return something to us. So that was just like, again, very normal. But it also built for me, like being a young female, I had so much faith and trust in myself. Like I know even till this day, no matter what, like even if you took everything from me, I would be able to start again and figure it out because that was just something that I've been doing since I was 12. Like if I want to make money or if I want to build something, I can figure it out.
What a beautiful gift to be surrounded by that mentality and to learn that from a young age, because it's actually like kind of the opposite of what a lot of women learn, right? In society. So, and I love that even your dad was like making you these business cards. So, even though they were like, don't be an entrepreneur, do something more stable. Like it was just in your like blood or in your like DNA to pursue this in some way.
Yeah, you're so right. Actually, I never thought about that. Like they told me to be an accountant, but everything else was to be an entrepreneur. So it's kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah. So when did you start thinking like, so you're in corporate, you're working at all of these high profile companies like Pepsi, you've made this pivot from accounting to marketing. When did you start thinking about leaving the corporate world?
So, yeah, I had an interesting journey. So, when I was at Pepsi, I definitely struggled a little bit. I felt like the best way to describe it is I always felt like I was just keeping my head above water. I knew I wasn't the best, but I wasn't the worst. So, I could keep my job. And I just struggled. Like I felt like I didn't understand the analytics. Marketing inside a corporation is much different than marketing at an agency. And I did not understand that. I thought just go to a big brand and that's where you want to be. But I'm not an analytics person. I'm not a numbers person. But I did my best. And then I decided to hop over to General Mills. That transition for me was really to see like, is it Pepsi or is it me? And that's why I went to General Mills because I wanted to test that. And when I got to General Mills, I felt the same way. I was like, this is just, it's like enough for me to stay. It's good. I can do it. I could probably get better at it if I stick it out, but I feel like I'm not excelling. I don't love it. So that's when actually General Mills went through a massive restructure. They laid off a very big chunk of their workforce, and I was part of that layoff. That was the best thing in the universe. That was the best blessing ever. It really was, thankfully, like it happened to me and it happened like for me. Sorry, it happened for me at that time. That's how I ended up on this journey of working with my mom and going down that path.
Wow. It's wild how like now looking back, you can see that, you know? Because
Yes.
sometimes, like, especially when you're in a role like that, where I'm sure you're like making good money, like you said, you were good at it, you could have kept going. It's a lot harder to leave, right? It's a little easier to leave when you're like miserable, you're so unhappy, you're not like maybe not making a lot of money, there's potential somewhere else, but it's actually a lot harder to leave when you kind of have that stable, like it's okay type of situation.
Yeah. There's no question that I am very grateful that I got let go. I can completely understand why it would be difficult for somebody to leave consumer packaged goods and move into maybe their own side business, an agency, something where you're not getting all the benefits. So there's no question. Like I'm very, very grateful. I would have likely waited to have something else. I would have hesitated. I would have questioned myself. And this couldn't have worked out better the way that it happened.
So after you find out about the layoff, like, had you talked to your mom about working with her before, or was it like, how did it happen?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I was around events for so long, but I never really understood what my mom was doing. And even though I helped her sometimes at different events, her company also evolved a lot while I was at university. So I didn't really see that evolution, and I didn't really fully understand what she was doing when I had graduated. And this layoff probably happened maybe 2, 3 years from me graduating. So there was a lot also happening on my mom's business. I just remember her talking about big companies like MAC Cosmetics or Air Canada Vacations and companies like that. So I got laid off. It was not my first thought to call my mom. The reason I called my mom was because the first day at home by myself, like my sister went to work, her and I were living together at the time. I was sitting on the couch and I felt like, oh my God, I have no purpose. Nobody even knows if I'm alive today. Like, I have nowhere to be. Like, what am I supposed to do here? So that is when I called my mom. And literally the next day I was at her house helping because I said, hey, I know that Pepsi and General Mills were not right for me. But what I don't know is what is right for me. And if I just if I just start applying to marketing jobs, which is what I know, and I start going down that path again, I feel like I'm just going to end up back this place. So I was lucky, I guess, in the sense to have my mom to call. And she also really needed me because she was starting to get a bit bigger and trying to drown in the work. So I called her. I said, hey, I'm going to come in. Why don't I just help you out for a bit? Like, don't buy me a desk. Don't buy me a laptop. I'll use whatever you have. And I'm just there for 3 months and I'd be on my way. And that's really how it happened. And thankfully, she agreed to that. She was like, yep, sure, come on in. I still thank her for saying yes. And I was living in Liberty Village, Toronto. I was driving all the way up to Thornhill every day and working in her basement. Like I said, I had no desk. I would just take a chair from the kitchen. I'd bring it downstairs and I'd sit beside her. And I'm so grateful for that time because I learned everything from listening to my mom answer the phone. I had never planned an event, right? Like I had a marketing business degree, but I had never planned an event. So I knew nothing about events at all.
Wow. So really, like I'm just trying to go back to this moment with you, and it's like, okay, you got laid off, your mom needs some help in her business. You're like, yeah, I'll come help you out for a few months. Like I don't just want to jump into the next thing. So you're just thinking like this is a transition moment. You have like at this point no real interest or like passion for events. Like you've never worked in events before. So you're sitting with your mom, you're listening to her answer the phones, you're kind of like absorbing all of this now, like this knowledge about her business. When did you start to think like I'm kind of into this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I so I think a couple of things. Like one, and I know like a lot of your listeners, some of them might be debating like what they want to do with their careers. One thing I will say that really helped me along the way is I never forced answers. I honored intuition.
Ooh, I love that.
So I think that's really important because I just knew that it wasn't right to go back, but I didn't know what that meant. And to be honest with you, even if I didn't have my mom, I probably would have found a way to take that period of time. I would have worked at Starbucks. I would have gone to a restaurant, like if I had to, because I do believe your intuition is your strongest guide. And if you really honor it, you'll end up in the right place. So if you're okay to kind of go through some of the gray, you will end up there. So I think in that sense, I was just trusting the process. That's one. And then two, what happened was, yeah, I went to go work for her and I realized how fast paced events was. And I came from corporate where everything was a red tape. And you would work on like packaging for a month and then they would tell you, you know what, we're not going to update the packaging, never mind. So I got into events and my mom's like, hey, this person needs like entertainment next week. And I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. Like, and I like solved their problem and I picked up the phone. I was like calling to get them the thing that they needed. And then they signed the contract. I was like, oh my God, that happened in like 3 days. It was such a shift from what I had been used to. And I loved that. So that was one thing. So I already started to feel this like going from having just my head above water to now feeling like, whoa, I actually think I'm really good at this. Like I can move pretty quick and I can get this done. And then clients started telling my mom that they actually really loved working with me. And she was like, hey,
Oh.
all the clients are like loving working with you. So I'm getting all this like positive reinforcement. And it was just like I felt it. Like I'm like, yeah, I got this. Like it was a confidence that I hadn't had. And because I had worked in these jobs for 3 years, like I felt it. Like it was just a feeling. It wasn't like forced. So yeah, it was just a feeling I had. And I'm like, I have to like kind of keep going down this road.
So you keep getting these signs like you're happy or you're satisfied when like you solve a problem, a contract is signed, a client is happy, you're getting this positive feedback. So what I really love about this is I think sometimes we're always looking for big signs, like these like big
Mm.
things to happen to be like you're on the right path. But what I think is more realistic is what happened to you, where it's like these small moments of validation, right? And like you said,
Yeah.
just like that deep, like that intuitive feeling of like, I think I'm on to something here. I think I'm on the right path.
Yeah, you're always going to be celebrated when you have the skills that are in the right role. So my skill to move really quickly, to really hear people's problems and then communicate really clearly back to them, like all these skills were being really well utilized in this particular career. They were not being as well utilized in my prior roles. So I went from being this like average performer to being like a high performer. It's not because I was ever a bad performer in the other job. It's because that job was not right for me. And I'm actually really happy I experienced it because even when I manage people now within events, I can see if they're doing what I did. Like I can see if they're forcing it and I can tell if it's just, I can really have empathy for them and encourage them potentially to move in like a different path of like, hey, you have a lot of these skills that aren't going to be utilized here. So you're going to look like you're failing at this role when really you could be a superstar somewhere else. And I'm so happy that I can now help people see that for them because it was something I was able to realize for myself.
This is such a powerful reflection. And I hope, like, for anyone listening who's maybe in that place where you're like, I know I have a lot to offer. I know I'm bringing so much value to the table, but it's just not being received here. Like, Hailey, what you just said is really like impactful that you might just be in the wrong place, right?
Yeah.
And it might just be the wrong role. But I think so often, especially as women, we like are so quick to blame ourselves and to go straight to, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I need to work harder, or like you start comparing yourself to other people and then that takes a toll on your confidence. So I'm like, I feel like I'm just sitting here kind of letting that sink in. That's so powerful.
Yeah, no, it's cool when you look back and you can pull all these pieces together and these learnings together. It's so funny to me because when I was at Pepsi, I created a lot of these mini events like welcome day for a new employee, or I did like this whole like snack bar when we were working on this like massive presentation. And I even took things from my mom's house because she's an amazing curator of home goods. I'm like, I need bowls, I need shelving, I need to create like a food bar. And when I left, the biggest thing that they were sad that I was leaving was because of the impact I had had on the culture through my own events. But still, at this point, I did not realize that I should be an event planner. I was actually doing, when I look back, I was like, Hailey, you were doing this the whole time. And it's actually probably the one reason they kept me at Pepsi because that was the one reason they were sad I was leaving. So it is funny how these things are sometimes. Again, I think too, in the world I grew up in, event planning was not like a respected profession. It's not that it was talked negatively about, but you wouldn't think a business student should become an event planner. I mean, if you go to Western, Ivy, Laurier Business School, Queens, they're not talking to you about being an event planner. And yet event planners are some of the smartest people I've ever met. It is such a skilled profession. It's so respected now, but I didn't grow up around it. Even though my mom was in it, I always saw her more as an entrepreneur, and I saw event planners as well. You don't need like a top business degree to become an event planner. So I underestimated how respected the profession was, and that also caused me to overlook it.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And especially now, like you're saying, looking back and seeing how you were doing this all along, but it just didn't even occur. And I think like it almost like that almost ties into what you were saying earlier. Like your intuition was leading you to do these things. Like nobody else thought we should make a snack bar while we prepare for this big presentation, but you did. And I think, you mentioned the culture element too and how much you contributed to culture there. I mean, I know you and I know you through your work, and I've like seen the culture you create at your events and with your team, and it's really special. And so it doesn't surprise me at all to hear that you were just naturally doing that in your corporate jobs too. I wonder, like, when okay, so we have this moment where you leave, you're working with your mom, you start getting these like mini moments of validation. But in the intro, I mentioned that you own the company now.
Yes.
So tell me, like, when did that happen and become even an option for you?
Yes. I worked with my mom for 5 years.
Okay.
And in that period of time, we grew out of the basement. We grew, I think at our peak, we were maybe 6 people when the pandemic hit. We had a lot, like, we were just on this like trajectory of growth. We hired some really talented people. We were getting bigger contracts. And like I said, we were able to move out of the basement to a proper office. Then the pandemic hit and we had to lay everybody off. I will say at this point too that, and I feel like I can talk about it publicly. I don't talk about it a lot just because my mom and I's relationship is still something that's like sensitive, but it's not easy to work with family. And neither of us were perfect. We both had, our own way of operating. And it did create a lot of friction over the 5 years. And even though she also taught me everything, it's like a two-sided sword. She taught me so much and I'm so grateful to her. And without this company, I wouldn't be where I am right now. But at the same time, it caused a lot of stress working with family. So when the pandemic hit, and I'm highlighting this because you were talking about the difficulty of leaving. And I actually thought about leaving a couple times through the whole time I was there. And one thing that really kept me there was this feeling of responsibility for the team. I had a lot of people that reported into me that I was training and coaching. And I've always seen as kind of like a parent, like these are my kids. Like it was actually a cool feeling, to be honest. I was able to like put them before myself a lot of the time. I'm not saying that's always good, but it was a nice stretch for me to know that I actually cared more about other people than I cared about myself. Not in like an unhealthy way, like in a way that I felt like I was actually maturing and growing. And through that, when we were able to, when we had to unfortunately lay everybody off during the pandemic, was the first time I didn't have this responsibility or this guilt. And that's when I told my mom, like, hey, I think it's best that you decide what you want to do moving forward. We go back to a mother-daughter relationship. This is your company. A lot of people thought I had ownership in the company. I did not. But also I never expected it. I really respected my mom for what she did and what she built. And in my opinion, it was her business that she let me into. And at that point, we already knew that down the road I was going to take over. So at that point, she offered me to buy the business. There was going to be a lot of rebuilding during the pandemic because we were going to have to go all virtual. And for somebody that's already created a bunch of businesses, she was not in like a place where she wanted to do that. So that's actually where I had the opportunity to come in and buy the business during the pandemic with no team and no sales. So it was
Wow.
quite the bookmark in a chapter of my journey.
The first visual that came to my mind, and like I think it's just from my own experience, is, and I don't know if you're this kind of person, but the people who can go into like see like an abandoned, rundown building and they're like, oh, I see the potential here. I see like the kitchen here, the dining room here. I see the beautiful high ceilings. Like I see the potential for the backyard, like all of those things. And like there are other people like myself who are like, I need to see it. Like it needs to be moving ready. Otherwise, I cannot see it. And I feel like you had to see the potential when like there was literally nothing there in that moment.
Yeah, I definitely did. And I don't know what it was exactly. I definitely believed in the company and felt like we've always had a steady stream of business. My mom's been running it for, at that time, over 15 years. Now it's been over 20 years. And just, I don't know. I guess I knew. Like, I'm like, this company is going to be okay. But I will say, when we had to sign the contract and firm up the payment schedule, that is when I got really a little freaked out. And I was like to my husband, I'm like, how am I going to pay this per month and all that? And so I did go through a process of fear. but I just knew I had to do it. And I agreed to the terms. Like we obviously negotiated them. We made it so that I was comfortable with it. But there was still an element where I'm like, okay, this has to work because I committed to this. And yeah, but there was belief. There was always belief. I think it goes back to being a kid. And I'm so glad that my parents raised me this way, which was, you can figure this out. Like you can drop me and I will figure it out. I believe in myself. And I think because I have a lot of belief in myself, I didn't know exactly how this was all going to work out or what was going to happen, but I had a tremendous amount of belief that I could do it.
Yeah, and clearly, I mean, you have, but let's talk about like, so it's COVID. Like so many businesses that we all know were hit hard, but like events was like really hit hard. Like literally, it's like nothing you did before you can do now. So, tell me about some of those like big steps you had to take right away when it came to pivoting to this virtual world that we were all starting to live in.
I would say that I didn't actually try and control the situation too much. It may have been too because I was still a little bit younger. I wasn't really in a like, how do you grow a business? I was used to one thing and one thing only. Client calls me, they ask me for a solution to a problem, I fix their problem. And when I was able to strip away the fact that that still existed, how the outcome, what the problem was different. The outcomes were going to be different. But I'm like, okay, well, I just have to solve everything I do in events is like a little puzzle. People give me a mixed Rubik's Cube and I have to put the Rubik's Cube back together for them. That's the best way I think about it. And I remember this day where I got a call from a client and they were planning an event. And for context, we specialize in entertainment and add-ons. We now do full event management as well, but this is important for what I'm saying. So we had an event planner call us and say, we need mixology kits to go out to like all of our guests. So I said, okay, no problem. Like, because that's how I always did it. I was like, great, I will figure this out. Like, just give me what you're trying to solve and let me see what I can do. Well, my sister worked at Bacardi. All of their brand ambassadors couldn't do their jobs in the bars. So the only way for them to sample their product was if we put them, this was like one avenue of the option, we put them in our kits and we were willing to buy the product, right? So now Bacardi has us buying exclusively their product. So as long as we put Bacardi product in, their ambassadors would do the classes for us. So it actually helped them. So thankfully I had this, again, I just lean on whatever resources I have. I'm just one big Rolodex of people to call when I'm trying to solve something. And that's how it all started. Now, those mixology kits were not great. We had a lot of problems. I never shipped things across the country. I had a lot of learning to do. But a couple things that were really important during this time is, and this is, I would say, important to anybody changing a career, moving into something new, whether you are, because I was literally changing. Imagine me like now changing into head of virtual events, brand new role. So being okay to be a beginner, I think that is the best line to say in your head. It's okay for me to be a beginner. It's okay that I am a beginner. Because if you're somebody that's been doing something for a while, you have to level set with yourself that you're starting from day one again. So that was a big thing. And then the other thing was that I knew I'm pretty good at human behavior. It's actually my favorite class in marketing, like consumer behavior, how people think and respond. So I knew that based on human behavior, my prediction was that clients would give me the first year of the pandemic to mess up. And events is very high standards. People, especially the clients I work with, you don't get a lot of second tries. At the pandemic, you did get a second try because they were all in it with you. However, I also gave myself a deadline as to when I expected people to remove that courtesy. And I decided that I had about 8 months where I could mess up as many times as possible. And I'm not saying like massive mess ups. I'm just saying I went for it. And that's what I did. For 8 months, I went for it. I tried everything I possibly could. By the time that 8 months expired, I had so much experience in virtual events and shipping and everything that no clients ever like every client was so understanding, but also wanting to work with me because they're like, oh, the idea hunter, like they're really doing virtual events. They're in it. They're doing everything. So being okay to fail and being okay to be beginner, that was my secret sauce to getting through that first 8 months.
There are so many good lessons in there. And I really like what you said about, for anyone who's going through a career pivot or like making a big change, like of course, things aren't going to be perfect for that first little while. It's actually making me think about when I pivoted from my TV career to tech. I remember like going to training and I was the only person who was in a new industry. Like I was the only person who had never worked in tech before. And there were so many acronyms and like so much like tech lingo that I just didn't know at all. And I remember like writing it all down and like then like our asking like what is that? And like you said, like people were really great, right? You kind of have this like grace period where like people want to help you, but you're also right. At a certain point you're like, all right, I got to master the acronyms or like I'm not going to get that second chance. So, and also I like that you talked about it kind of giving you that space and permission to try different things and to probably like take some like risks, right? In with creativity and doing something completely new.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And just going back to what you were saying before about the grace period, from my experience, people waste their grace period. And I really, really want to get the message out. Don't waste your
Mhm.
grace period. And that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to not, I had this realization like very early on in COVID, like very, very early on. And I see it with new hires on my own team. And I try and remember actually to share this story with them so that they're comfortable to use their grace period. Because even when I'm training somebody, I'm like, I don't expect you to know this. Right. And I think people come in, they want to impress you, they want to do their best. And of course, like bring your best, put your best foot forward, bring your best to a new job, but don't waste the grace period. You don't get it back. And then you end up having to retract. Now you take longer to onboard, you take way longer to train. We're trying to go backwards to crack things. If you come in with that open mindset of learning and being okay that you don't know everything, you'll be up and running way faster.
Yes, and like asking all those questions right up front, like you said, rather than just like trying to pretend you know something when you really don't.
Yeah.
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 I love that you share so much about your journey on social media now. And even like in this conversation, I feel like you've dropped so many incredible nuggets that we can all learn from. So I'm curious, like, when did you decide to start sharing more about yourself and the behind the scenes experience of being a CEO in the event world on social media?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm definitely an open book. I don't know if that it's always been a little bit of my nature, and then I think through social media, I don't even notice if I should filter something. I'm just so comfortable with I just feel like this is the journey I was given, so why not share it? Like, I didn't sure, I created a lot of it, but I also have been on this journey, like, this was given to me, and I'm just realizing the journey I'm supposed to be on, so I'm happy to share. When it comes to social media, like I said, when I first started this career, I gave a lot to looking out for other people, and people looked out for me too. It was a two-way street. But I do feel like for me personally, I sacrificed a lot to do what was right for the company, do what was right for my mom, keep this company afloat through pandemic. As much as it sounds like it was all like it was so great because I took chances. I was burnt out. Like I worked so hard. I literally worked 7 days a week to keep that company alive. I had post-its all over my wall because I had to remember everything by myself. I didn't have a team to split projects up. So I was up at 5 a.m. going to bed like crazy hours just to get it done. So with that said, I feel like over the years I gave a lot of myself and I needed something that was Hailey and not the idea hunter. And which is kind of interesting because I think that's actually the opposite of what most owners think. Most people have to be like, you're not your company. I know I'm not my company. I don't need anybody to tell me that. I actually need to honor that feeling I already have. And I'm happy that intuitively I already know that because I think that's a tip that a lot of business owners get is don't make your identity your company. And I felt like I'd given so much to the idea hunter. I gotten it to a great place, but I'm like, I need to like see who I am. I realized like I don't even know who Hailey is. And I want to really like explore myself. I want to explore my personality. I want to explore everything. And I love marketing. And like I said, I love consumer behavior and human behavior. So Instagram is kind of a natural avenue for me. It's like a playground for somebody like me. It's not very, I mean, it was a little bit intimidating at the beginning, but it's not as intimidating for me. And when I was going through it, I remember thinking, okay, should I lean heavier into the Idea Hunter Instagram or should I lean and start building out the Hailey personal brand? And this, again, thinking back, you think well, I have my own company, so I don't have to worry so much about my own personal brand. But actually, you are, again, your personal brand actually will have a lot of power for you. And my company is my whole team. I don't want our Instagram to, even though, yes, it has a lot of my voice, I don't want our Instagram to be just me. Like, to me, I represent the team. So I can only show such a percentage of myself because I have to think, okay, well, the rest of my team is represented under what I say and do. And I remember calling my twin sister, and I was actually in tears. Like, it was a very emotional decision. I don't know why, but I was like, I don't know what to do. And I hope I have capacity and time to be able to build out my own Instagram. But should I just do the idea hunter? Like, do you think I'm gonna like overload myself with too much? And she was like, Hailey, do your own personal. She's like, you've always wanted to do it. You love it. It's like so you. And I just needed one person to push me and just kind of say what I already intuitively felt. But she really gave me the permission to lean into it and do it. And yeah, so I've ended up finding my balance along the way. It took about 8 months to figure out how to balance both Instagram accounts, plus what is my message? That's a huge one. But Valeria Lipovetsky, she said something that I love. She said, put something out there and then fix it. I think a lot of us are scared to put something out there and fix it publicly, but that's what I did for 8 months. I put it out there and I fixed it, and I figured out, what do I have capacity for? What can I actually film during the week? What do people like actually like? And I feel like it took me 8 months to get to a place where now I know how to manage it. I know what kind of content I create. I know what my brand is, but it took me 8 months to get there. And I changed and reiterated it a lot along the way.
This is another example of like that grace period, right? Like not being afraid to just take those risks, try things out, because I think what does stop a lot of people from putting something out into the world is just that fear of what if it doesn't work? Or that idea of, I think you mentioned that you touched on this, like it has to be perfect before I put it out there. And the reality is like, it's just not possible. Like that experimentation and trying things out is all part of the process. And I've certainly, as an entrepreneur, gone through the exact same thing where the reality is like I can think of so many pieces of content I spent hours on. I'm like, this is really going to resonate. And then it doesn't. And then I spend 30 seconds on something. I'm like, oh, I just have to put something out today. And it's like my best performing thing. And I'm like, what just happened? But it's because I was just like being me, or like, it was like really authentic. And sometimes, honestly, sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I don't know why. But yes, like you have to give yourself that permission to just put things out there and fix it later.
Yeah. And by the way, yeah, that's all of us in the algorithm, sea of the algorithm. It's so funny because now I just put stuff out and I don't even think about I think that people just eventually are like, okay, she's still here. Like she's the real deal. And if you can, I also, yeah, going back to just anything in my life that I've ever done where I'm like, okay, I'm going all in. I think we expect also everybody's support right away. And what I would say is earn people's support. Even the people that are closest to you, you haven't done anything yet. I don't expect my family to support it right away. I don't expect, thankfully I had a couple supporters close to me, but I've always been of the beliefs that you have to earn the support. And unfortunately, that's another thing that deters people. If they don't get the support right away, then they feel like, oh, well, nobody's supporting me. I shouldn't do this. People are only going to support you if you keep showing up. You have to show up for months and days and show them like, this is not a little stint. This is like the real deal. And I tell you, people will turn and they won't even remember when you weren't doing it. That's the cool thing too. Like people thought I was on Instagram for like a year and when I had been on for 2 months, but I posted every single day. And they're like, haven't you been doing this for years? I'm like, no, but you wouldn't know because I showed up every single day. So now you think I've been here forever.
That is so true because they get used to seeing you, like you said, and they're like, oh yeah, she's like always here. She's always posting something interesting, always posting something that gives me something to think about. And they might not comment, right, every single time, but you're showing up and that consistency makes such a big difference.
Yes, just go for it. The other thing I was going to say too, for context, is that I'm a big, big believer in coaches. And when I had a strong interest in social media, I also realized that when you're going from being a consumer to a creator, there's a bigger learning curve for at least me that I had to mentally wrap my head around. Now I'm producing the entertainment or education or whatever it is versus consuming it. So I did join a community so that I could learn more about content creation. And being around other content creators, being around people that are doing the thing you want to do and making it feel normal, not unnormal, allowed me to be really successful in coming on social media and posting every single day because they were all doing it. So my people that I was around was people that thought that that was normal versus other people that now it is my normal. But when you first hear you should post every single day, that feels really intimidating. And also, are you sure? Won't people get annoyed of me? That's a lot. But because I was part of a community and I was around everybody doing it and it was working and it was the method, it helped me to execute much faster than trying to go at it by myself. And I do that across multiple areas of my life because it's truly yielded great success. If I want to work on something and I don't feel like an expert, I hire an expert.
Yes. Yeah. Cheers to that. I know so much of my business has my business similarly accelerated so much faster because I've always worked with coaches and well, being a coach myself, obviously, I'm a big believer in coaching. But yeah, I absolutely love that. I think it's the way to accelerate, right, your success in any area. On this topic, one of the topics that you post about a lot, and you even had a post go viral, is about goal setting and like achieving, setting goals and how to achieve them. A lot of the women who are listening right now are ambitious. They've got big goals. So I'm curious, like, what advice do you have about goal setting and then follow through, which I think is the hardest part?
Yeah, I feel like this is such a big topic and it's the thing that slows so many people down. But I will say, when you figure out the recipe to it and you do it over and over again, it becomes like your natural personality. That's what I realized about me. I can do this with anything now because I've done it so many times. But if you're somebody that's struggling a little bit, I'm going to try and go backwards to when I was first learning how to set a goal and achieve it. Two of the best ingredients you have are small ingredients and consistency. The thing that I hear a lot is these big goals, really, really big. And that's great. I have big goals too. They're my visions. They're what I meditate on. They're how I produce feelings and emotions around my future manifestation, all of that. But if I want to do something tomorrow or within like actually change something in my life and like get really clear on it, I figure out, okay, what is it? Like, what do I want to do? And then I think to myself, okay, well, what am I doing now? And what would I need to do to get there? And usually a big goal is going to be multiple little goals. So, for example, like I would love to expand our company to the US. And that's just part of me like wanting to push myself a bit more. And I've seen other event companies do it. So I'm like, hey, why can't we do it? But that's a massive goal when you think about moving to a different country. So I really had to sit back and say, okay, like what would I have to do tomorrow to start getting myself there? And then I thought, okay, virtual events we already actually have. So where do I already have customers in the US? Well, customers do virtual events with me. Okay, so now I start to narrow in on virtual. So now I'm not physically going there, which now reduces a little bit of the intensity of this goal. I don't have to think about housing. I don't have to think about a visa. Like, let me just take this like a little bit one step back. And again, this is me. Like other people love to go big and then they like to figure it out after. I like to go small and make my way up to big. So now I'm going to think, okay, what do I have? So we just did, for example, a PR video on a really successful virtual event. That was a small project that's connected to that's a small project connected to a goal that's connected to a bigger goal. So we had to that took about 3 months to get the VP of this organization to do a PR video with us, which because we've been doing it for 5 years, they agreed. Then we got the studio, we recorded it. Now we're going to use that to promote this virtual tournament. Our goal this year is just to increase our US revenue to a certain number. So every big goal, just bringing it down to like, okay, what's the next small project? And the thing is too, the power in doing small moves like this is that you start to shift your mind to a place where now I'm already working in the US. And now it's like I'm probably going to eventually stop thinking about it because, I am already working in the US. okay, well, then I got that referral. So I may as well just like go to Miami for that job. And now it's like, I'm actually manifesting it around me because I'm making it actually my norm. So, and it might be, to give, that's like a pretty big one for us. And we're in the process of like processing that all right now. But another one could be like when I wanted to get my health goals on track. The first thing I did was I just hired a coach. And I was like, that's the first decision I'm going to make. And that call, I can book that virtual appointment right now. They have a free consult. I'm going to book the consult. I'm going to take the call. And then I'm going to figure out what to do after. And the one thing I will say on that, just as we go back to coaches, and I'm not just saying this, Priya, because you're a coach, I know you're amazing at what you do, but I heard this line and it really resonated with me where they said, poor people stay poor because they think everything is a scam. And I actually truly believe that. Now, are there things that are scams? Yes. Please use your intuition and good judgment. But the longer you debate if something is a scam, you will talk yourself out of it. And the amount of things that I would have missed out on in my own personal growth had I not just like been like, you know what? I don't know 100% if this is going to work, but I feel 80% good about it. And the 20%, this company has to now earn my trust. And I tell that to them. I said that to my first fitness coach. I said, I don't 100% know if you're going to work, but I feel 80% good about you. So the 20% is for you to now make me know that I made the right choice. And guess how much more she's going to show up when she wants to earn my trust? Because I put 80% of my blind trust in her. Now I'm actually giving you a smaller percentage than I gave you, right? So that was a long-winded answer, but hopefully you got some good tidbits in there.
Oh my gosh, so many good tidbits. And I actually really love that about just being forthright with like, I trust you 80%, but you need to earn that extra 20%. Because I think as a coach, if someone said that to me, I'd be like, okay, like challenge accepted, you know? And like you said, like when you're a good coach, you're good at whatever you do, like that client satisfaction is so important to you. And most of us, like you are as an event professional, like I am as a coach, like we're purpose driven people. So you actually want that, right? Like you want to succeed in that challenge, and the success of your event, or for me, my clients, like that's a reflection of my work. And that's also the reward too. So yeah, I think that is so wonderful, like such a good takeaway, and the breaking it into the smaller goals. That's really, because I think that that's another thing that can happen is like when you said, when you have these big goals, it can just be overwhelming to think like, how do I go from here to there? But when you have those micro goals along the way, and also like when you celebrate those, right? So you can really feel your progress. That is such a game changer when it comes to reaching your big goals.
100%. I had one girl on our team join and she kept talking about Pilates. I'm really big. If you tell me your goal, I always tell people, I'm like, don't tell me your goal if you don't want to achieve it, because I'll break it down for you and I'll keep bothering you about it. So I said this to her, I'm like, do you want me to know this goal? And she said yes, because I think she was kind of curious if it would help. And she wanted to go to Pilates. So I said, great, let's break this down to small steps. What would you have to do first? We'd have to figure out, are you going to go to a studio or are you going to go online? So by next week, why don't you come back with 3 potential, maybe 2 studios, 1 online, 2 online, 1 studio, whatever. Bring that to your next one-on-one. You don't even have to do anything this week. You sit on your couch with your cat, no Pilates. Just find 3 that you might be interested in. Great. She comes back the next week. Did you find the 3? So that's what I'm talking, like it was that easy. Now she's been doing Pilates. Her mom's been trying to get her to do Pilates for years. She couldn't do it because she wasn't ready to take that step. So she started with the YouTube in her house. She realized she really liked it. Then she joined the studio. And now I don't bother her about it, but she's like, oh, I miss my Pilates classes. And sometimes I still think back and I'm like, oh, I love that she's now it's just become her normal life, but it took her so long to do it because she wasn't breaking it down into like super easy, simple steps.
Yes. Oh, that's a really great example. And now it's just her, like you said, it's like her everyday or her regular life that she just like needs it. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I really love that we took this whole journey through like where you started out in corporate, your pivot from accounting to marketing, and then your pivot from corporate to your mom's company, then to buying the company, pivoting during COVID, like all of this experimentation. And now here you are today with this very successful company. You're expanding into the US. So I wonder, as you like look back on where we started and that especially on that big turning point where you left your corporate job, what would or where you decided to stay away from corporate, I should say. I wonder, like, what are you most proud of when you reflect on all of that?
Oh gosh, that is, I feel like I stuck out a lot of discomfort. And as somebody that actually was more reserved and had anxiousness, I've gone through it all. I've had the anxiety. I've had where my heart is pounding at my desk, and especially during the pandemic. So I am not somebody that's like built differently than everybody else. And I really feel like when I look back, I really sat in that discomfort. I showed up to that discomfort. There were days where I'll be honest, like I did not have much emotion. Like I would wake up and just show up because people needed me. And that was the thing, especially during the pandemic. I know a lot of people struggled through that time. I did as well. I think being busy and needed helped me get through it. I didn't have much time to not wake up or not think about it. I had to show up. But I'm glad that I pushed through that discomfort because it built so much confidence. I already had confidence in myself, but the confidence I have now in myself, I'm so happy I went through the pandemic. I'm thrilled that I had to survive a business because you can't really shake me that much. You can't really scare me. You know, I think when you have that kind of stuff in your backpack and you're like, I've been through this, like I can figure this out. That is such a gift. So yeah, I'm really proud of myself. I think it would have been easy for me to quit a lot of times throughout it. And but you know what? There's a difference between quitting because intuitively you know it's not the right match and quitting because you gave up too soon. And when I
Mm.
quit because I knew it wasn't the right match, I honor that. I'm so proud of those decisions because it tells me that I was super aware of myself and I was really in tune. And the times where maybe I would have quit because it was tiring, it was exhausting, it was hard, but I stayed is because I knew that's where I was supposed to be. And I just knew I had to keep going.
Yeah. Oh, I feel that. Like, I remember when I left my TV career, I remember, like, feeling like, did I like I quit something, you know? But now when I look back on it, I'm like, that was such a powerful decision to leave because I wasn't happy there. It wasn't giving me what I needed. And like my intuition was telling me, like, you are not supposed to be here right now. And now I don't see that as like a failure, you know? I see it as a really powerful decision. So I think that's also something great that we can all take away from this interview is that like quitting is really can be really powerful when you're doing it because you're doing something that just isn't aligned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hailey, thank you so much for this. I really enjoyed our conversation. I have so many good takeaways. I know the listeners do too. So for people who want to stay connected with you and continue to follow you, where can they find you?
Yeah, no, this was so fun. Thank you for having me, Priya. And you can find me at Hailey__Dawood. Unfortunately, I could not get the full name. There's other Hailey Dawoods out there, I guess. And the Idea Hunter. And please, if you listen to this podcast episode and something resonated with you, I'd love for you to send me a message and let me know. I'm always happy to connect over social media. But yeah, thank you so much for having me, Priya. You're amazing. And it was such an honor to be here today.
Oh, the pleasure was all mine. Thank you so much, Hailey. And thank you to all of you for listening in. If you're ready to learn how to find your most powerful story and to learn how to use it to stand out professionally, I do have a free Power Story Playbook Masterclass coming up. So send me a DM on Instagram or on LinkedIn if you want to get an invite. You can find me at Priya Sam. Until next time, take good care of yourselves and of each other.